Welcome to An Author Dissects a Narrative with your host, Husna Haze. In this captivating series, we will unravel the intricate tapestries of your favorite movies, TV shows, games, books, and beyond. Prepare to embark on a journey of analysis and exploration as we uncover the hidden gems and profound themes within these beloved narratives. Remember to show your support by hitting the like button and subscribing for a regular dose of insightful content. Let's delve into the realms of storytelling together. Welcome back to the Deconstructed Universe. That's right, we're back. And by the title of the video, Nick Blaine, hero, coward, or collaborator, the complete character analysis, you can tell we're going to dive into the world of The Handmaid's Tale. Nick Blaine is one of the most frustrating characters in The Handmaid's Tale. Not because he's badly written, not because he's boring, but because for 6 seasons, he exists in a morally gray zone that leaves viewers constantly asking the same question. Who is Nick Blaine really? Is he a hero trapped inside an impossible system? A victim of circumstance doing what he can to survive? Or is he a collaborator who spent years benefiting from Gilead while convincing himself he was different from the people around him? Unlike Serena Joy, Commander Waterford, Aunt Lydia, or even June, Nick never fully reveals himself. He's a man of secrets, a man of half measures, a man who constantly stands between resistance and complicity. And by the end of the series, that's exactly what makes him such a fascinating and frustrating character. Today, we're diving into Nick's entire story, from the rise of Gilead to his relationship with June, his promotion within the regime, his failures, his most brave moments, and why, despite everything he did for June, he may never truly have been the man she needed him to be or the man she thought she was loving. And that's like an interesting dichotomy to dissect, because I personally can't stand Nick. But before we get into my opinion, we need to first of all evaluate the facts. And to evaluate the facts, we first need to understand who this man was before Gilead. To understand Nick, we have to begin before Gilead, essentially. Before the uniform, before the commanders, before the handmaids, before June, Nick was a nobody. He was struggling financially, he couldn't keep a job, he was unable to maintain stable employment, drifting through life without direction. The show presents him as someone vulnerable to radicalization. And that's important because unlike many victims of Gilead, Nick wasn't forced into the movement. He joined it. The sons of Jacob didn't recruit a powerful politician or a military leader. They recruited a young man who was forgotten by the system, forgotten by society, forgotten by the people around him, forgotten by the very government that was there to protect him and guide him and provide him with a stable living situation. He was forgotten. Someone searching for purpose, someone desperate to belong somewhere. History tells us this is exactly how extremist movements often grow. They don't just attack fanatics, they attack ordinary people, people who feel abandoned, people who feel angry, people who believe someone finally understands them. Nick wasn't evil, but he was susceptible. And that susceptibility helped create Gilead. One of the most uncomfortable truths about his character is that he wasn't merely trapped by the regime. He helped build it. Without people like Nick, Gilead never becomes possible. The stain remains on his character throughout the entire story. No matter how much he regrets it later, no matter how much he falls in love with June, no matter how much he tries to make amends. When Nick first appears, audiences immediately compare him to Commander Waterford. And compared to Fred, Nick looks like a saint. He's quiet, respectful, protective. He notices June's suffering. He appears sympathetic. But this comparison creates an illusion because the truth is that being better than Fred Waterford is an incredibly low bar. During much of season 1, Nick is passive. He watches, he observes, he survives. He knows handmaids are being raped. He knows women have lost their rights. He knows families have been destroyed. Yet he remains part of the machine. His relationship with June changes everything. For the first time, the suffering becomes personal, no longer abstract, no longer distant, no longer someone else's problem. And this is where Nick's greatest strength and greatest weaknesses emerge simultaneously. Nick will risk everything for people he loves, but rarely for principle. He protects June because he loves June, but when it comes to opposing Gilead itself, he's not going to do that. That distinction becomes incredibly important later because loving one victim isn't the same as fighting the system that creates more victims. Let's address the relationship that divides the fandom. June and Nick. There is no denying they love each other. The chemistry is undeniable, the emotional connection feels real, but love doesn't automatically mean healthy. Their relationship exists inside a nightmare, a world built on violence, fear, and coercion. Nick becomes June's safe space, one of the only people she can trust, one of the only people who sees her as a human being, who she can be herself around, who the world that they live in, the nightmare that they're encased in, can fall to the wayside and they can just be two people, two human beings who see each other, who understand each other, who they can be emotionally vulnerable around each other. In many ways, he saves her sanity. But there's another side to this relationship that often gets overlooked. Nick represents survival, not freedom. Every time June turns to Nick, she finds comfort, but comfort isn't liberation. Nick never becomes the revolutionary partner June desperately needs. Instead, he becomes someone who helps her endure Gilead rather than destroy it. Their relationship often functions as an emotional refuge from oppression rather than a challenge to oppression. And over time, this creates a strange imbalance. June constantly evolves. She becomes bolder, more dangerous, more revolutionary. Meanwhile, Nick remains largely the same. Still cautious, still conflicted, still unwilling to fully commit to a side. The result is that June eventually outgrows him, not emotionally, but morally. She begins risking everything to fight Gilead. Nick continues trying to survive inside it. This is where criticism of Nick becomes unavoidable. Throughout the series, Nick gains power. More power than almost any resistance fighter. He becomes an eye, then a commander, then a trusted insider. His influence grows significantly, and every promotion raises the same question. Now what? Surely now he'll help destroy Gilead. Surely now he'll take a stand. Surely now he'll finally choose. But he rarely does. Instead, Nick repeatedly chooses limited action, controlled action, safe action, just enough to help, never enough to completely burn the bridge behind him. This pattern defines his entire character. Nick wants the benefits of resistance without fully embracing its risks. He wants to help June while preserving his position. He wants to oppose Gilead while remaining protected by Gilead. He wants both worlds, and eventually that becomes impossible. Cowardice isn't always fear. Sometimes cowardice is indecision. The inability to choose when choosing matters most. Nick spends years existing in morally limbo spaces, not fully resisting, not fully supporting, just surviving. Compare him to people like Moira, Emily, Luke, even June. These characters repeatedly place themselves in direct danger to challenge the system. Nick rarely takes that level of risk. Instead, he adapts. He compromises. He waits. He tells himself there will be another opportunity, a better opportunity, a safer opportunity. But history shows us that oppressive systems thrive because of people who wait, people who postpone action, people who convince themselves that tomorrow will be the day they finally do something. Tomorrow becomes next week becomes next year, and eventually the moment passes. That's Nick's tragedy. Not that he lacks courage entirely, but that he rarely had enough courage when it mattered most. Now, to be fair, there is another side of this debate. A side many critics ignore. Nick lives inside a totalitarian regime. One mistake means execution. One wrong conversation means torture. One act of rebellion means death. This isn't modern day democracy. This is Gilead. And Nick repeatedly risks his life to help June. He passes information, provides protection, helps coordinate escapes, supports resistance efforts. There are moments when he genuinely displays bravery. The problem is that these acts are usually active or reactive in his case, not proactive. They're responses to crises, not attempts to fundamentally change the system. Nick isn't a revolutionary, he's a firefighter. He's constantly putting out fires while the building continues to burn, essentially. And because of that, his actions never fully redeem his complicity. Now, June outgrows Nick, and this is something that the fandom rarely addresses and forgets. One of the most interesting aspects of the later seasons is how differently June and Nick develop. At the beginning, June needs Nick. By the end, she doesn't. Not because she stops loving him, but because she becomes something bigger. June transforms into a symbol, a survivor, a resistant figure. Someone willing to sacrifice everything for freedom. Nick never undergoes that transformation. He remains trapped between worlds, and eventually that gap becomes impossible to ignore. June evolves into someone willing to burn down the system, even to her own detriment. Nick continues trying to navigate it. The distance between them grows larger every season. Not emotionally, ideologically. The greatest tragedy of Nick's story isn't that he loved June. It's that love was never truly enough. Nick spent years believing he could protect the people he cared about while remaining inside the system. But systems like Gilead don't work that way. Eventually, they force a choice. And by the time Nick truly understands that, much of the damage has already been done. His life becomes a story of missed opportunities, missed chances to act, missed chances to leave, missed chances to fight, missed chances to become the man he wanted June to see. He isn't a monster. He isn't a villain. But he isn't the hero many fans imagine either. He is something far more realistic. A flawed man trying to survive an impossible world. A man whose fear often outweighed his convictions. A man who knew right from wrong but struggled to fully commit to either side. And perhaps that's why Nick remains one of the most believable characters in the series. Because history is full of people like Nick, people who recognize injustice, people who dislike oppression, people who quietly disagree with evil, but who never do enough to stop it. So, was Nick Blaine a hero? Not really. Was he a villain? Not entirely. Was he a coward? At times, absolutely. But reducing him to any one label misses the point. Nick represents the uncomfortable middle ground, the space between resistance and collaboration, the place where most ordinary people actually live when confronted with authoritarianism. His story asks a difficult question. What do we owe each other when the world becomes unjust? Is protecting the people we love enough? or do we have a responsibility to fight the system itself? Nick chooses the first option, June chooses the second, and that's ultimately why their paths were always destined to diverge. Because while Nick spent years trying to survive Gilead, June spent years trying to destroy it. And history rarely remembers the people who simply survived. It remembers the people who chose to fight. What do you think? Was Nick a tragic hero, a coward, a collaborator, or someone who occupied the middle ground? Essentially, something in between. Let me know in the comment section below. And if you enjoyed this deep dive into The Handmaid's Tale, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more character analyses, world building, discussions, and storytelling breakdowns. And I'll see you in the next one. Welcome to the end of the video, and thank you very much for making it to the end. Make sure you check out Vertigo Honor Bound by Blood, the first installment in the Vertigo book series. It is set in 2095 at the heart of the Imperial Champion regime, where Emperor Gregory Champion rules over Earth and the colonies stretching out across the solar system, where there is a virus called the Omega virus that has mutated and changed the political landscape of Earth. This is a story about factions, about coming of age, about the importance of being firm in what you believe in a world where bloodlines matter. What faction are you?